There are many powers that the radioactive spider granted Peter Parker. Wall crawling, spider sense, superhuman strength, but those are all so boring compared to his razor-sharp wit.
Hey, my name is Spider-Man. You can call me Webhead, you can call me amazing, just don't call me late for dinner, you get it?
Okay, maybe not every joke has landed, but horrible jokes are like half the fun of Spider-Man. Today, we'll look at the times each of our live-action Spider-Man movies went off the rails as the actors decided to throw in some improv. Do you remember that amazing time when Spider-Man had a secret identity? Well, before the help of Doctor Strange, that is. Ned Leeds? Oh, he surely did. When it was revealed to MJ that Peter Parker was in fact the European sensation known as Night Monkey, poor Jacob Batalon didn't know what was being shot, leading to a genuine shock on screen. Ned trying to cover up Peter's identity was entirely improvised by Jacob.
So, too, it's cool. I've known first and I've known longer, but it's not a competition.
See, the trio of the home series has spent a lot of time together on and off screen, having even lived with one another during the production of Homecoming. So the crew has been very lenient on improvisation, as they are well aware that the natural chemistry between them is more natural than how the 50-year-old writing duo thinks teenagers speak.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Okay, so picture this. You are auditioning for the role of Peter Parker in the MCU. In fact, you're going to screen test with some of the Avengers. Before going in, you find out that the casting directors don't want you to improvise any lines. Stick to the script. Easy enough. Then freaking Robert Downey Jr. walks out and entirely goes off the rails.
Oh my God, it's Robert Downey Jr. What? What are you doing?
What may seem like a genuine nightmare actually happened to Tom Holland. He ignored the note about the improv and matched Robert, which would not only land him the role, but give him some gravitas when playing around in his own movies. By the time Spider-Man Homecoming rolled around, Peter had lost 2 father figures in his life. You really can't blame him for just desperately wanting a hug from the big old Iron Daddy. Except that's not what he gets. What was supposed to be a scene where Tony Stark simply opens the door for Peter, Tom Holland took it as an open invitation to hug his mentor.
That's not a hug, I'm just grabbing the door for you. We're not there yet.
Maybe next time, Tiger. In fact, pretty much the entire car scene was improvised, and that just goes back to how well Tom improvised on his audition for Civil War. From a hug that Tony Stark desperately wanted to be over, to an embrace that Tony never wanted to end, the tear-jerking "I don't want to go" in Infinity War was improvised. The Russo brothers wanted the death to feel more like a statement than a plot device, so they allowed Robert and Tom to play around, which is where this moment landed. And oh boy, what a moment it was.
Please, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
While we all made some great memes following the line, those were just Webb's cauterizing the womb, making their final hug in the RTHCU, or the Robert Tom hugging cinematic universe, all that more satisfying. Anyone order a pizza ball? Cause it's time for our favorite cheesy Peter Parker.
Pizza time.
One of the very first quips made by Tobey in Spider-Man 1 happens to be when he's trying to activate his organic webbing. It's so funny that for a fleeting moment, you forget that he's trying to dispel a sticky white goop from out of his wrist. The scene features a bunch of quick cuts featuring various hand symbols and catchphrases. The best part? Sam Raimi gave Tobey free reign for the entirety of the scene. It's just kind of weird that Tobey chose a bunch of DC references.
Up and away, Webb!
One of the other standouts in the Raimi films was JK Simmons, who absolutely went above and beyond as J.Jonah Jameson, playing the character so spectacularly that he has been the de facto actor for the role for the last 2 decades. One of the reasons he shines so much? All his scenes were mostly improv. That's right, he's gone on record in saying, a significant portion of what you see on screen, even though the script was there and was good, we just screwed around and came up with gags and ideas. That's what birthed arguably the funniest gag of the entire trilogy, which didn't even end up making the theatrical cut. In Spider-Man 2.1, there's a genuinely hilarious scene of Jameson donning the wall crawler spandex, and it's just one of those things you never thought you needed to see until it's been shown to you. So, no problem. Okay, it's really no secret that Sam Raimi didn't want to incorporate the symbiote into Spider-Man 3. He's mentioned that it was no fun for him to even consider Peter going that dark and vengeful.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
That's where Sam started playing with the lore found within the comics. Rather than actually making Peter a cool guy as a result of the suit, he went having the symbiote make Peter think he's a cool guy. Spoilers, he's not. The absolute defining moment of this idea is the dancing Peter scene. Oh, Tobey, you be careful with those thrusts. As you may have guessed, considering it's a part of this video, the pelvic thrusts were improvised the day of filming, and actually happened to be one of the only scenes that Raimi actually enjoyed filming with the symbiote. One of the best Easter eggs featured within the Maguire trilogy is all the stand-up comedians hidden throughout. From Joey Diaz to Jim Norton, it kind of seemed like Raimi was collecting Opie and Anthony mainstays like Thanos collected Infinity Stones. Perhaps the most obvious comedian cameo is Hal Sparks, who appeared bewildered to share an elevator with Spider-Man. There's an obvious awkwardness to the scene that just adds to the comedy, and that's because they really didn't know what to say. It was all improvised over the course of 25 different takes.
Looks uncomfortable. It gets kind of itchy. It rides up in the crotch a little bit too.
The Amazing Spider-Man series reeks of studio mandates, so it may not be the biggest surprise that there wasn't too much improvisation happening on set. One of the few exceptions happens to be Captain George Stacy. His actor, Dennis Leary, having a background in comedy, had given him some leeway in his line readings, which led to the
"Do I look like the mayor of Tokyo?"
line. Come to think of it, how rad would it be if the lizard ever goes full kaiju, forcing Peter to call upon the help of Leo Pardon to stop him? Oddly enough, while Dennis was able to improv, Stan Lee was kept on a leash during his cameo, being forced to stay silent even though he pleaded to director Marc Webb to make a quip. He wanted to say something along the lines of, "Oh, Dostoevsky, he's like the Russian Stan Lee." I guess there just wasn't a lot of Crime and Punishment fans over at Sony Pictures. Considering that the Amazing Spider-Man 2 script is already filled with an exhaustive list of characters, adding even more cast members to filming may seem like a bad idea. You know, considering they even had to cut Mary Jane Watson.
But you can't do this to me. You know how much I sacrificed?
But this one planted the seed for the Spider-Verse. For the first time ever, we saw not one, but two Spideys sharing the screen at the exact same time. Okay, that's hyperbole, but this moment ended up bringing in some much needed levity to the end of the film. Before Spidey seemingly decapitates Rhino,
fatality.
A young boy from previously in the film stands up to the mechanized Giamatti. As it turns out, he was never in the script at this point in the film and was added during filming just to tug on a few heartstrings. One of the few things universally praised about Garfield's time in spandex is his on-screen relationship with Gwen Stacy, which of course was greatly influenced by their love life outside of the movies. As it turns out, their playfulness really aided with the movies, allowing Andrew to be a little more confident on set. During the graduation scene, Peter, both regretful that he missed his girlfriend's valedictorian speech and on a high from stopping the big fat liar, gives a big ol' smooch to Gwen on his way to the diploma. Sure, it's a small improvisation, but it goes to show just how much being Spider-Man has affected Peter Parker's life, considering just a few months prior, he was too scared to even ask Gwen out. As it turns out, even No Way Home is going to have some monumental improvised moments. Tom Holland described the behind the scenes of the film to be fairly fluid and stated that he just didn't feel like his big crescendo scene felt natural. This led to a big script change the day of. I'm really excited to find out what this scene was.
This is all my fault. I can't save everyone.